Now, in the dysfunctional family, they have a no-talk rule. Don't tell anybody. A lot of secrets. Lots of secrets. Don't talk. Don't you ever say anything like that. That's disloyal to the family. And part of the big problem you've got when you get into family systems is the innate, instinctive drive for everybody to be loyal to the parents. We idealize our parents. That's the only way we have of surviving in a dysfunctional home. We idealize the parents. We say, my parents are perfect. Because if my parents aren't perfect, then I can't trust. Okay, my 3-year-old world of security is gone. So there's a no-talk rule. And there's the denial of the 5 freedoms. There's unreliability. Whenever you go to somebody with feelings, you can't depend on them. You can't depend on the alcoholic father to be there. You can't depend on the codependent mother to be there for you emotionally either, because she's so engrossed and tied into dad. She's just not there. She's unavailable for you. So you never feel like you can rely on somebody. And so I decide that I won't be dependent. I won't rely on anybody anymore. I'll quit relying on people and I'll be independent. And to be a man, I have to be totally independent and not dependent on anybody, because dependency is weakness, and weakness is awful. Weakness is despicable. Does that make sense? Okay. And then perfectionism. You've got to be perfect. You've got to do it our way. Now, obviously, perfectionism sets you up for failure. Who can be perfect? But you're always trying to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, you have to make it perfect with words or deny the truth. So you've got to be perfect. And control. On another one, I'll talk about control madness, okay? You've got to control. And all the relationships are incomplete. So in completion, the games are never completed. Nothing is ever resolved by either denying that it exists or by constantly keeping it going and keeping feeding. Now, some of the games you get into with your kids, the codependency games, the addiction games, or with your husband, they never ever end. And they go on and on and on. And until you are willing to admit them and identify them, they will continue. They'll never stop. Then we have this control madness. You've got to be in control. Because if I ever lose control, then I can't keep covered. I can't keep hidden. Does that make sense? Because somebody can expose me and get to me if I'm not in control. So they're in control of everything. In control of the kids. In control of the dinner. In control of the bed making. In control of everything in the world. And so as long as they're in control, they feel safe that nobody will get them. Does that make sense? So they're super controlled. Parents are hyper vigilant with their kids. And then also blame. The dysfunctional family is always blaming because they can't take blame. They've always got to be right, so they're going to blame. And this is the blame game. And as long as I'm blaming you, what happens? I don't have to work on my stuff. Yeah, wives say all the time, I got to get my husband in here. I say, well, you're in here, let's work. Well, I got to get my husband in here. He's the problem. Then the husband calls me up. My wife's going to come in and see you. Here's the deal. Okay, here's how to fix her. Does that make any sense? And as long as I'm blaming you, and it's your problem, as long as I attack, remember, the best defense is a what? Good offense. As long as I'm blaming, then I don't have to do anything. So the blame game goes on and on and on. It's very profitable. And in therapy, that's one of the first things you got to do. I have a little deal with my people that come in for marriage counseling. I say, one of the things we do is we only work on our own stuff. You willing to do that? We only work on our own stuff. You can't live your husband's life and he can't live yours. From today on, we only talk about our own stuff and how you're going to improve the relationship. If the wife improves 500% and the husband improves 500%, how will that work? Oh, that's great. You think she will? You know? I said, that's not the issue. The issue is what are you going to do to contribute to this relationship? Okay, but they're both trying to change for the other one. Get him to this and get her to do that. And they're doing that all the time. That's the first thing. One of the very first things in marriage counseling I get onto. One is you've got to accept their truth. Whatever they say is their truth, as goofy as it may be. Well, she's always chasing me. That's why I withdraw. And she says, well, he always withdraws. That's why I chase. Who knows when that got started? Do you think that coming out of a family, do you think that a father who is always withdrawn, say he has a little girl here, and he's very withdrawn, and the girl is pretty much chasing that father, trying to be intimate with that father, trying to connect with that father, needing that father's relationship, and he's withdrawn. Maybe she's getting at an age where she's starting to get sexual or something, you know, starting to develop a little bit, 13 or 14, and so he sees that and he feels awkward there. It's no longer kind of appropriate for her to jump on his lap. Do you know what I'm saying? And he's kind of turning off on this, and he's kind of pushing her away, and she can't understand that. And so can you see her going out and marrying some guy that's pretty distant that she has to chase? Do you think anything like that could happen? Happens all the time. She's trying to finish that relationship with her father, trying to connect, and she can spend the rest of her life chasing a guy like that. Some guy that was there for her and says, honey, I think you're wonderful. Talk to me. Look at me. Let's be intimate. She goes, ah, and runs the other way. All right? So the blame and myth-making. One of ours was, aren't we fortunate that we have such a beautiful family? Aren't we fortunate that we have such a close family that is so close and loves each other so much, that we have such a good family, better than other families, better than any other families? Everybody compliments us on that. I never heard anybody compliment us. That was all out of my mother's head. She was making a myth. Okay? Not admit it. Never admit it. Never admit the truth. It's somebody else's fault my kid does this. Always myth-making. My children are wonderful. They love me.